So as we go into series number 2, who will get the right to play Bloody Face in the finals? Empanizado is going to be our challenger for today. He is the dark horse from Mexico, as he is the newcomer to Grandmasters alongside Language Hacker and Papa Jason. Language Hacker made it to the top 8 and did a great job, but was not able to advance through the group stages after some really unfortunate series of events, but also some just really poor panouts. And Empanizado, on the other hand, had some really great panouts and, a couple of stumbles here and there, but for the most part, really kept his macro line in check, as he is going to be playing Tempo Demon Hunter, Spell Druid, and Bomb Warrior. That Rogue was banned away, TJ. That wasn't something that I was expecting either. Rogue hasn't really been a candidate of being banned. If you look at the slower lineup from Fr0zen, as he has combo Demon Hunter, Resurrect Priest, and Galakron Warlock, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it does make more sense. I may be worried about the Priest, I suppose, because I do think that Token Druid and Galakron Warlock both have been doing quite well against Rogue across the board, like in every region. So I guess he's the Priest is the one big one where Priest, as we've seen, we saw yesterday, I believe, has been struggles against Rogue a lot because they can't. It's just so hard for them to stick a board. But interesting ban to say the least. I think that Empanizado also has the pretty interesting Rogue deck. It has the Umbral Stalker plus the Questing Adventurer thrown in there. Just pure Galakron Warlock outside of that. Very lean otherwise. But yeah, Fr0zen's Resurrect Priest, we saw it banned from Saiyan in the last series, but we're going to get to see it from Fr0zen. He is playing the Bad Luck Albatross version. We saw the Shadowy Figures come in super clutch yesterday, or the day before in his matchups, as well as the Escape Mana Sabers, which seems like, a weird inclusion for the deck, but it just gives you so many more options to open up things, and even if you put it in the Resurrect pool, it allows you to accelerate and ramp very quickly in many games. And you could get a board full of Escape Mana Sabers and just have what feels like infinite mana every turn.
Yes, and it is a very fun deck to play, and I think that most people who play against it would say that it feels pretty frustrating when Priest gets a lock onto the board and Resurrect and keep healing stuff. I feel like people just don't like playing against Priest, period, because of the nature of what it tries to do, which is stay on the board and stay ahead with healing, versus other class which traditionally struggles more with healing their minions. In a game where you're trying to assign permanent damage to a minion the moment they take it, compared to other card games where a lot of times health is regenerated at the beginning of turns, it does feel as if having that ability to heal for Priest is sometimes game breaking if you get that early lead. And so I think that's why most people, when they see the Resurrect plus the heal, it sometimes feels like overwhelmingly difficult to overcome that.
And this deck from Fr0zen is designed to pretty much never lose the board once it gains it because of the Shadowy Figures and Grave Runes. You can just keep re-upping. So probably even more frustrating to play against than, say, Saiyan's version, which is more focused on just having consistent removal, because it has the Renew, the extra Holy Nova, more like late game threats, instead of trying to get down like the Albatross early or the Escape Mana Saber early and use those for board presence. So this one, I think, feels even tougher to play against, because in the late game they obviously they get on the board faster, but then in the late game they have crazy options that can punish you, as we saw yesterday with Shadowy Figure. Fr0zen was given one, or not yesterday, I keep saying yesterday, but I'm pretty sure he played on Friday. He was given one opening, a 1-in-3 Conjurer's Calling, and he got a Conjurer's Calling on his own minion with Murazond, and then was able to Shadowy Figure and never lost the board again. So that's all it takes with this deck.
Yeah, that is pretty impactful, to say the least, when you play a Murazond and you swing the board with that Priest. So we'll see if the Priest ends up coming to play, but for now, the thing that seems to be the center of focus for a lot of the lineups that we've been seeing is Warlock and how Warlock interacts with the lineups. There is that Demon Hunter available for Empanizado, so the Warlock does have a good matchup there. But against the Warrior and the Druid, I do wonder how that Warlock's going to fare. Warlock seems to be just a little bit inconsistent relative to what I want it to be doing if I bring it to a tournament. And we kind of brought it up on the first day of competition, but it seems like players are also divided on whether or not Warlock is legit. They've specifically called out Warlock's inconsistencies and said that it's not worthy of being brought to a tournament. And yet some people, when they bring lineups, are banning Warlock because they feel like that is the deck that best counters them, or they just want to get the best edge that way. So it's pretty fascinating. Whoever you talk to, they seem to be differing in opinion. And again, we're in a pocket meta. This is going to change entirely next week. Not only that, but of course the format going from Conquest to Last Hero Standing.
How dare they talk about Warlock like that, Dan? How dare they?
Yes.
There's even some players that value Zoo Warlock over Galakrond Warlock. Most of the time, Warlock in conversation at the moment is Galakrond Warlock, just because it's versatility. But Zoo's up there. It's on people's radars. Tom, of course, we had the discussion that Tom's going to bring Warlock until, until Grandmasters ends, or Grandmasters ends him. And then Fr0zen also, who had top 4 appearance in the Europe Swiss finals earlier, also had the Zoo Warlock. So, wonder if we're going to see more of that moving forward, especially if the metagame changes. A lot of people theorize that it's going to slow things down, but with some of the kind of slower or more combo-oriented decks slowing down themselves, I think it might even speed up.
It might get faster. Who knows? Maybe you just all in a little bit more, so you're less consistent, but you still have equal amounts of power. Yeah. So the win rate would fall, but it's still just as scary as ever.
Yeah, that's a conversation for a different day, since it's all theoretical.
Yes.
But what's not theoretical is the game we have in front of us: Empanizado versus Fr0zen, Priest versus Demon Hunter to start things off. Yes. And I see 2 Frenzied Fellwings in the opening hand for Empanizado. That's the key to success.
Right. However, Fr0zen does have the answer to the Holy Smite. So while the Frenzied Fellwing would normally be a key to success, he can't get both down on the same turn, and that's when it becomes... That's the tipping point, where you can't really keep up with removing the Fellwing and they're pushing out damage. But Fr0zen just has, the raw Holy Smite here, just to shut down this 3-2 and stop anything else. If he chooses not to and he passes, he still has response because he can Penance and Holy Smite right back. So I'm okay with either here. Yeah, pretty interesting that Empanizado chose to go for a Metamorphosis here. Part of me was thinking that he should consider Mana Burn to try to see if he can get more damage off the Frenzied Fellwing. And Mana Burn would have been a pretty effective way to stop the counterplay, because you know that Priest is going to hard mulligan for things like Holy Smite and Penance.
Maybe
that's like
he just wants raw damage.
Yeah. No, it's true, but you also get damage by having your minion stick.
True. But do you get 10 damage?
Fair enough.
But 10 damage at the cost of having a card in your hand that's potentially blocking Outcast. Who knows? Like, it's a dead card for a while, and you never know what the game state's going to be like, whereas you're pretty sure that Mana Burn to protect your board over the next few turns, the turn that you play Frenzied Fellwing at least, would be enough. So, I don't know. It's a good question.
Oh my goodness. Ooh.
Let's play that thing.
What a draw here for Fr0zen. And this is partially what has put Priest back onto the map. Things like Holy Nova becoming cheaper is much more convenient AoE that honestly is entirely reasonable to play for 4 as opposed to 5, where it could deal enemy minion or enemy characters. Now Empanizado trying to keep that aggression going, but Fr0zen is just stopping. He's got the Escape Mana Saber and that Holy Smite. Appreciate the fast pace of play, considering that this feels like Priest is off to a dominant start. Although we've seen Demon Hunters kind of pull things from the depths. Even if it looks like they're kind of behind early, they just somehow rack in that damage. And now maybe we get to that stage of the game where Metamorphosis that early game scry effect was really powerful for Empanizado because it doesn't seem all too far-fetched to try to get to 19 here.
Ooh.
Wow, Grave Rune and Shadowy Figure.
That's good. Oh, man.
Oh, he wants to play Breath of the Infinite.
Oh, okay, he just wants to clear it off.
Right, yeah.
No, that does make sense, yeah. The Shadowy Figure is a little too wishful thinking. Like, oh, I'm going to take all of this damage. And he should have played Breath of the Infinite first, obviously.
That was 2 damage onto his Mana Sabers. Whoops.
Yeah, actually, that could end up being a pretty big whoops because now all of a sudden, this like Mana Saber that would have been able to value trade over a Satyr Overseer, it doesn't.
Yep.
So.
Oh wow, yeah, that is a really pretty significant. That's a massive deal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he could heal it, but then that's 2 additional health that he could be taking to his face. Yeah.
Well, he still can go for Mass Resurrection and revive the Mana Sabers.
9 mana to essentially have 0 impact on the board because they're not taunts. I mean, it's better than any alternative, right?
Right.
And that was only unlocked because of his misstep last turn. I don't know.
Right.
I guess.
Fr0zen, because his Mana Saber died, unlocks the ability to revive at least 2 of them.
That's oddly funny.
Yes, that's very
Maybe that was
humorous.
purposeful. I don't know.
If I'm Empanizado, I think I'm using Metamorphosis here. If you use Metamorphosis, Spectre Sight is very high likelihood to shift to the other side of the hand and in time to get the Outcast effect. And yeah, I think that Empanizado going for the kill.
Yeah, and ignoring the Escape Mana Saber, the 1 health here. The health just really doesn't matter. Doesn't find Shadowy Figure, but this is kind of the downside of like this very board-centric version of the deck is that you cut a lot of taunts. Fr0zen doesn't have you know, the Bone Wraith. He doesn't have additional removal spells or heal from in the early game like Renew to kind of get him a tool in a pinch and also gain him some health. His first taunt is Convincing Infiltrator, and then he has Cartoon Defender, but that's it. So those are his defensive tools. Ooh.
Empanizado could fish for a lethal, and again, I think it's something worth considering because if he uses Second Slice and Spectral Sight here, he will end up shifting Skull Gul'dan to the other side of the hand. So I like going for it. There's a couple of draws here that might help him get there. And finds the Chaos Strike. And, you know, the Tempo Demon Hunter finds a way to win despite Fr0zen having things pan out really well, and that Metamorphosis pickup from Empanizado has paid off in spades. So I stand corrected. It ended up working out beautifully, even though the Frenzy Fell Wings went down early. I kind of thought Priest would have a pretty good grip. It had 2 Holy Smites, a Penance, Breath of the Infinite, and it had early game minions to play. So I kind of thought that Priest was going to be ahead in that game, but I guess not.
Yeah, because every turn, the Demon Hunter kind of just chips away. And while he was able to clear the board every turn, he wasn't able to like completely swing it back into his favor. And and didn't find a taunt, right? Like if he finds Convincing Infiltrator or Cartoon Defender, that Mass Resurrection that comes out later on in the game ends up being much more impactful because he can never get any more minion damage out, essentially, from that point on. But yeah, I think Fr0zen played that one pretty well. The Escape Mana Saber didn't really matter at the end of the day. He got one back from Mass Resurrection, which was the only play he could have made in that situation anyway, I think. So he just kind of got run over by Demon Hunter. That's the power of it.
Yep, so that's game 1 in the books here. Fr0zen now has to go back to the drawing board. I think he still might consider queuing up Priest because against the Warrior and Druid has been doing very well. And Empanizado being able to escape that Demon Hunter and perhaps allow Warlock to stay up still is a big deal because I'm pretty sure Fr0zen really wanted that Warlock to queue into the Demon Hunter and then maybe use the Druid in a different matchup.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a possibility. But He's going to have to just. I feel like we get into the situation a lot where Demon Hunter just has played cute first and then wins, and then you have to rely on a weakness in the rest of the matchup. Every time Demon Hunter is not banned, that's the what ends up being the case. It was a case in the first series of the day too, and so we'll see if that continues to be the trend throughout the day. But Tempo Demon Hunter just seems like it's picking up wins nonstop.
All right, so with that, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have Empanizado up 1-0 over Fr0zen. The conclusion of the series will be answered right after this break.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile, helping you stay connected to what matters most. Learn about T-Mobile's COVID-19 response on T-Mobile.com.
De niño solía coleccionar insectos. Pienso que los gatos son mejores que los perros. No sé. Está bueno. Sí.
Empanizado, he looks like a bug collector.
I'm trying to think if I've seen him play, but everyone uses their hand, like their right hand for the mouse, right?
He is left-handed, that's a lie.
I don't know.
I think the one that is a lie is that Empanizado is left-handed.
I don't think Empanizado used left hand.
I don't think he's left-handed.
I'm gonna go with I like cats more than dogs as the lie.
You are correct. That is the lie.
I will say that Empanizado didn't like cats more than dogs.
That is correct.
He likes cats more than dogs, as the lie.
Yep, correct.
I'm gonna say he likes cats more than dogs. That seems like a lie. I think he's a dog person. Wow, I got that right? I don't even know him. That just seems like the one you would lie about. I don't know why. I have no idea why. I was just very pulled to that one.
We are back with more Hearthstone Grandmasters action for the Americas. Empanizado is currently up 1-0 over Fr0zen, as Fr0zen looked pretty good at the beginning of that priest game, but as we continue to see Demon Hunter rise up in dominance, it just won't be denied.
No, it's tough. I don't know. I feel like Fr0zen had a decent hand. The only thing he was missing was the taunts, like the defensive layers. It's one thing to have the early removal, but because of how Demon Hunter works, which they dump their hand, chip away, refill with their insane outcast card draw. You need the removal early on and then the defensive layer of the taunts to close things out and stop it, right? To be able to have time to heal up. And Fr0zen didn't have the second step of that equation, and that means that Empanizado takes game 1. But Demon Hunter's out of the way now. He's got the Druid and Warrior left remaining to fight against Fr0zen's lineup. So I still think the Priest is going to be in a decent spot for Fr0zen with, I think, good matchups against both the Warrior and the Druid. So we may end up being even at that point. But the biggest thing for Empanizado is if he's going to be able to find an upset against the Priest in one of those two matchups. Because if he does that, I think he's an overwhelming favorite to take the series.
Yeah, and we've seen some pretty wild matchups in terms of just the volatility of it. Sometimes it feels like the class is ahead, and then we've seen some dramatic swings. Even going back to the Descent of Dragons meta, I think that's when people started calling it the swing meta, where it just felt like no matter how far ahead, you have to stay on your toes because your opponents always had like an opportunity to potentially flip it around. Almost like it was a Final Jeopardy moment, right? Where even in the darkest hour of a deck, if they play like a Galakrond and summon or draw like the exact cards that they need, or in this case, if you're playing things like Druid, never really count out the Kael'thas decks because they always feel like they can pull a rabbit out of their hat.
Yeah, at least that's what it feels like.
Right.
By rabbit, yeah, a desert hare that ends up being massively buffed. All right, so overgrowth for both players, but Fr0zen does pick up the Fungal Fortune, so he's going to be able to fill up his hand and get that ball rolling. Still no minutes. Taking a look at the kind of the differences between both these players' decks. Fr0zen does have the one copy of Force Aid and a single exotic Mount Seller. Empanizado looks like he's doing the same style. There are a couple differences here where Fr0zen does have the Starfall for the matchup, which seems fantastic in the mirror because it gives you an answer to swing back a board state that you may have lost.
Right. And I think that's a big difference maker potentially, or even necessarily like answering the board state immediately. Maybe it just helps you get past like an Ironbark taunt sometimes. I don't know. Like I think that having that one copy of Starfall is pretty much designed for things like the Mirror or potentially Demon Hunter. Either way, Empanizado, he's the one that's going first, and in these mirrors, when you're trying to be proactive onto the board, I always want to go first.
This is pretty awkward for both players. They found the ramp, they've found the card draw, but they haven't found the boards yet. No Glowfly Swarm, no Exotic Mount Seller, no Kael'thas. They're just kind of filling up their hands and waiting.
Yeah, when I said go first, I meant more like he had the first opportunity to truly develop with like significant mana under his belt, but he doesn't really have anything. So now
there's no
Fr0zen could be the one doing it, but it's exactly what you said. What are these hands?
Yeah, at least he doesn't have to dump a card. Like at least he's at 9 cards, not 10 cards, because what card would you even dump if you had 10 cards in hand right now? He'd have to like play a Starfall on an empty board.
Yep.
Or Savage Roar, but both of those like seem pretty crucial to the game plan.
Fr0zen's trying really hard to think of like what's the best line, but I think it might just be pass.
Here, power pass.
And I mean, Empanizado also had a pretty weak turn himself, and unless he draws Glowfly Swarm, he too might be in a similar position where he's just gonna like do something that doesn't affect the board. He might end up just overgrowth, and then pass it back to Fr0zen.
Time waits for no one.
So Fr0zen gonna rope it down one more time, just evaluating if it's ever worth going for overflow and whatnot, but it really can't be, right? There's just no way. He has no hand space. He's gonna burn 3 cards. Oh! He's doing it!
My hand is
DJ! Ah, he lost his Kael'thas! Whoa. Okay.
Okay, I'm trying to think through this. So if he doesn't play a card there, next turn he would play Forest Aid, and if there's, he could play Ironbark to dump the last card because his hand would have been full. He had Forest Aid as a load up next turn. I'm curious what he's looking for. If he was looking specifically for Kael'thas,
Well, okay, so the chances of him burning Kael'thas is less likely to happen because, you know, he had 19 cards in his deck? And
Yeah.
so it's, let's just simplify and say that if he draws 5 cards and it was 20 cards, it would have been a 1 out of 4. That's not the worst odds. And Fr0zen's like, if I just don't burn that card and I draw deeper in my deck, I get close to it. And more importantly, cards like Overflow are just taking up my hand. And, you know, like you said, the Forest Aid keeps his hand size pretty high, so... Yeah, that's a tough position to be in. I'm sure it could be debated, and I'm sure that in hindsight, there's a lot of people who are onlooking and think that Fr0zen might have made a massive error, considering that Kael'thas is one of the most important cards in the deck. But, you know, it's clear that he thought about it for a long time and weighed the pros and cons. And honestly, with the Glowfly Swarm and the Power of the Wild, and if he gets the Ironbark off, it doesn't get answered, he might just win anyways because he has Savage Roar.
yeah. And I honestly don't think Empanizado even has a way to deal with this.
Right. Unless it was the
He's
next
just
card was
dead.
Kael'thas. Unless the next card was
his next card was
Kael'thas.
Kael'thas,
And
yeah.
Fr0zen playing that Overflow helped him draw to cards like Glowfly Swarm. This could be one of the more brilliant plays we've seen to set him up for success. I mean, Empanizado can clear off a little bit. He has Wrath and he has Bog Beam. He has the ability to draw cards through Overflow. He's going to Power the Wild first. I guess that makes sense because it doesn't really matter if he has an extra mana or not because he just wants the extra card. I do wonder if he needs that extra mana crystal, though, if he picks up, like, another Wrath, per se.
Yeah.
Time waits for no one.
Ooh. Okay. Remember how we were, like, saying that Starfall... Well, I guess he has 2 Bog Beams. Savage Roar, though. Savage Roar and the Bog Beam. Wow, I can't believe it. Fr0zen has found a way to win this game decisively.
It's not lethal.
Oh, it's not?
No.
I thought it was.
No, it's 29 damage.
Oh, you were totally right. For some reason, I thought he had an extra minion on board, so I was doing 5 times 6. But this is only 5 minions.
What to do?
Yeah, I think Empanizado counted. I don't even know if he would have played the Ironbark last turn, unless he knew that it was going to be blocking lethal from just Savage Roar.
Right. But
because
I mean,
if he had the Savage Roar and Ironbark wouldn't have blocked lethal through like removal spells, then he probably would have just saved it to go off on a potential Mount Seller or whatever, or Kael'thas next turn.
Yeah.
But it's close. The problem is that
close.
Fr0zen just doesn't have the deck doesn't pack direct damage. So for some miracle reason, his board gets removed.
Yeah. And I think Fr0zen froze halfway. And thought he was so he acted so fast that it made me think that he might have had it too.
Yeah.
But you can see the hesitation as he just kind of said like, okay, wait, do I need to cycle something first before I can say? Obviously, don't want to use Wrath on my own minions. Oof. Still a tough spot for Empanizado, and he does not find the way to fight back. He already had a Glowfly Swarm. Can he perhaps find Kael'thas, Wrath for the Kael'thas in this spot?
He needs, I think, exactly Kael'thas in this situation. If he doesn't find it, then I just don't see a way out.
Does not get it.
Crystal
Is there
power.
another way? Let's, okay, so there's 10, 16, 17 showing. I don't think there is.
And Power the Wild, taunt, and heal with Crystal Power.
Yep. But Fr0zen is going to be able to still get there anyways. And I mean, Empanizado was dead on board. Fr0zen wins the Druid Mirror. Quite the back and forth. I wasn't sure what was going to end up happening there, but you know, I think that Fr0zen, even though he had a couple of sloppy moments so far, overall, like I really like that overflow play now that I see it play out that way, and I think that was really cool. Despite him losing what most people consider to be the most important card of the deck.
Yeah, I still think there's the way it panned out was solid for him. You know, overall he did discard Kael'thas, but in the end it didn't matter because it got him a card closer to Glowfly. But I do think there is some discussion there to holding on to it, since he did have at least some type of board fill already in hand. If he didn't have like Forest Aid, then obviously I think that play would have been even smarter. I don't know. I'm 96% sold on it. I'm 96% sold that it was a brilliant play, but I have 4% of doubt that it was necessary. And maybe you hold on to it.
It's a healthy amount of skepticism, DJ, I would say.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to say that anything is like 100% correct, but the way the results, I mean, you can't really argue with it. Fr0zen won that game. Off of that play, and I think that was really cool.
Yeah.
So with that, we have 4 unique classes remaining. We have Druid, Warrior, Priest, and Warlock. These seem to be 4 of the 5 dominant classes, so to speak. We do have Demon Hunter, of course, leading the pack, and already got that win. And I do kind of wonder if Empanizado is going to be prepared for like these slower defensive decks to try and counter things like his Warrior and his Druid. At the same time, though, Druid, while it does struggle against Priest, seems to be doing just fine against Warlock. I do wonder how the Warrior will fare, though, because Empanizado's Warrior is a little bit more unusual than the average Warrior. It's got a lot of tech cards to try and win those extended games.
Yeah, the Blade Storm is the big one, and I just can't see it being of much use against Warlock or Priest. It seems like it was specifically in there for Druid. And it seems like I talked about it. He has a lot of like text across the board for Druid in some of his decks, but less in others. Like if he was targeting Druid specifically, obviously he would have put a Starfall for the mirror matchup in his own Druid. That kind of thing. So Blade Storm seems weird in the Warrior, considering that he didn't even tech his other decks fully to corner Druid if that was his strategy.
Right. Well, we'll see how it goes. For now, Empanizado off to a pretty good start, relatively speaking. Having that early ramp, has another overgrowth. Finds the Fungal Fortunes, which is just great if he wants to add on top of the mana crystals he has with Overgrowth number 2. Jeez. I mean, Empanizado's going to have his 10th crystal as Fr0zen just finishes up having his turn 5. However, Fr0zen does have some good stuff. He has the Mass Resurrection set up with the Psycho Pop, so he can keep these taunt waves going. He's got AoE and removal. He's got Mass Dispel. He even has Soul Mirror, which I think can surprise people with how effective it can be in this matchup if your opponent does not have Savage Roar ready to go.
He got the Zixer! That's big because it gives Empanizado an additional wave,
right,
of threats. Because now he has, another, a wave of 4/4/4s that'll happen at some point in the game. I mean, obviously, it shuts off his second Fungal Fortunes. Not shuts it off, but
makes it riskier.
Makes it riskier. But I think oftentimes you're willing to take that risk because just having the benefit of just getting a free 16/16 worth of stats shuffled into your deck is worth it.
Yeah,
this looks some Rising Winds card draw here.
Yeah, this seems pretty appetizing for Empanizado to try to go for a Soul of the Forest, but I definitely agree with the Rising Winds card draw. Oh, wow. I think you gotta rip it, right? You're not likely to draw Kael'thas. It's unlikely you get
the
punished.
Albatross.
Grave Rune.
The Dread Raven synergy.
Yeah, because it summons another Dread Raven.
Yeah. Dread
Yeah.
Raven has +3 attack for each other Dread Raven you control.
Yeah. One Raven is bad enough.
But
Just
two
ask
Ravens.
Sottle.
Ah,
But
jeez.
2 Ravens. Whew. Yes, of course, we're just joking. I'm really happy to see Sottle and Raven reunited on Europe. It feels only right to do so.
I must consider.
Raven has paid his time grinding APAC.
Yeah, we sent him to Taiwan for a year. To
Yeah, I
boot
know.
camp.
It was hyperbolic time chamber training for
Yeah.
Raven. And now he will cast.
If you can handle what APAC's going to throw at you, you can handle everything.
Yeah. Kind of like if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yeah. APAC is the wrench.
Grave Rune, and it doesn't seem like Fr0zen has anything really good to deal with the exotic Mount Sellers, so just gonna pass. And this is pretty unfortunate for the way that the Dread Ravens just naturally prey onto the Kartut defenders. And the Albatross. It's so poetic because Priest is the one usually shuffling it into the other people's decks.
Mm-hmm. Fr0zen pretty obviously signifying a Soul Mirror for the next turn with the preemptive Holy Smite going into turn 7 on the exotic Mount Seller.
Right.
We'll see. I'm sure Empanizado will pick up on this, but one thing's for certain, I think the exotic Mount Seller has already gotten its fair share of value, and right now Empanizado is just looking for more health than attack. If he's, trying to specifically play around that.
Right.
And Soul of the Forest is... Yes,
great.
Fr0zen will also get Soul of the Forest tokens, but honestly, that could be a detriment to Fr0zen. Because once those Soul of the Forest tokens die, that goes into the res pool, so Mass Resurrection all of a sudden becomes much weaker. And if he plays Soul Mirror here, he's
most likely dead.
Yeah, so there'd still be 4, 6 plus 10. Yeah, he'd be dead.
Right, and it's not just like Savage Lord's Gift of the Wild. You did see a Power of the Wild just now. Still, though, I think if you're in Fr0zen's position, do you have much of a choice?
Well, he'd be dead on board if he Soul Mirrors.
Yeah. Wow. Where's like the Psychic Scream or Plague of Death when you need it, right? The Priest has these, historically have had these definitive answers to boards, but Fr0zen does not have the cards nor the time. Obviously, Psychic Scream is rotated out long ago, but in this case, it'd be Plague of Death. Whew. Is there any way out? Is there like a Master Spell into something? I don't think so.
He can Psychopomp Holy Smite Penance to remove the most power.
Does that even kill?
Well, it removes the 7 power plus an additional 3 power on the side of Empanizado. So that removes the most power, and he banks 6 healing, so he's at 26. Savage Roar plus Iron Bark is a lot.
Savage Roar just looks like it could get there.
It does look like lethal, yes.
Yeah. 6, 10, 20. That's gotta be. Yeah. Even if your opponent's at full life, right?
Yeah, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I mean, he only needs 6 extra damage, and he's getting 10 extra damage, so.
Yeah. So that's going to do it. Empanizado 1 game away. Druid upsetting the Priest. A favorable matchup, one of the most favorable matchups currently in the field. Priest versus Druid has been super one-sided, clocking in slightly over 70% win rate in Grandmasters, and yet we see Druid able to take the win. What a big upset in this series. And if you're Fr0zen, you got to feel like even though you turned the tides with that Druid mirror, that was not the way it was supposed to go at all.
No, and Priest actually emerging as a weakness in the lineup for Fr0zen against Empanizado. Maybe, not so much on paper or based on statistics, but just, how it's panned out for Fr0zen thus far. We'll see if that's going to be the case, because I think we're probably going to see it again against the Warrior, because that seems like the better matchup on paper. So we talked about a little bit weaker of a Warrior deck for Empanizado, I think specifically against Priest, just because he does include those 2 Blade Storms, and while yes, those can maybe allow him to clear off a board state from Fr0zen, you usually want to be being proactive at this matchup and make things awkward for the Priest and force removal. But bombs can do some crazy stuff. Maybe he gets there with bombs in the end. He's got Blastmaster Boom, Clockwork Goblin, Wretch Caliber, Horde Pillager, so just a lot of options for bomb shuffling.
Yeah, or we just might get a bunch of shuffles on both sides. Albatross and all of their little birdies shuffled into the Warrior, and all the bombs shuffled into the Priest. This might be a very humorous game, TJ. I'm kind of feeling some shenanigans. Are you?
It could be.
I'm kind of, yeah. I'm feeling like Fr0zen draws 3 bombs in a row, while Empanizado draws his 7th Albatross in a row.
The funny thing is, Empanizado has so much card draw that I can see that happening. Like, you just battle rage for 7 and just 7 Albatross come into the hand.
Right.
South Sea Captain's one of the a decent pickup from
the
Sky Raider. Not quite as good as, say, like Captain Greenskin.
Not really the best card in this position, because the Sky Raider only goes up to a 2/3, and it happens to line up really poorly into the Albatross stats. But here we go, the Albatross train, TJ. Although I guess we play the Mana Saver here first, right? Because you get the Mana Crystal ramp in case you need it.
Mm-hmm.
So Empanizado, with his couple of his tech cards coming into hand here, he's got the Kargoth Prime. Well, Kargoth Prime is the shuffled in card, but
the Blade Fist.
Yeah, the Blade Fist is ready to go. However, this is not really a turn where the Blade Fist has an impact. Instead, perhaps he could Battle Rage and drop the Corsair, which is like card draw and tempo.
Yeah.
Not really too many other great options.
No. And you're starting to see already how awkward Bladestorm is going to be this game.
Yeah. What if we just draw first with Anchor and see what happens?
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best course of action. Empanizado probably could swing first with the Ankar. Oh my, a risky skipper play. I was anticipating this being safe for a while, but it looks like he wants to just go for full card draw here.
Okay.
I mean, 4 cards is great. And honestly, it develops kind of the same amount of power onto the board anyways as Dread Corsair. It's a little bit fewer attack points, but a little bit more health.
Yeah. Ooh, Shadowy Figure. That's even more potential Albatross shenanigans if he gets the Albatross from the Psychopomp. Because he Psychopomps Albatross and then Shadowy Figures the reborn Albatross. At this point, it's becoming less and less likely because he's playing more minions.
Right.
That Albatross is going to be the minion that's rezzed, but...
Yeah, I think he would much rather prefer having the Convincing Infiltrator be the minion that's that gets cloned by the Shadowy Figure.
Mm-hmm.
Empanizado picks up some other combo cards like the Brute and the Bomb Wrangler, but it still seems kind of awkward.
Yeah, Bomb Wrangler at least lets him get some damage spread across here.
Oh, right, the Brute's still playable.
Yeah, Brute is still playable.
Okay, this does kill the Mana Saver and the Boom Bot. there's this like very narrow possibility where the Boombot kills a convincing infiltrator and kills the brute. That would be really sad for Empanizado.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Bomb Wrangler dies. I think that is the second best option there for Fr0zen outside of killing the brute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually ended up being quite a nice turn. He still got some value out of the bombs. He still has one Boombot left. He gets a 6-5 at the end of it. Ends up being good. All right, is it Albatross? Nah.
Oh! The one minion I think that Fr0zen didn't want to necessarily see, although does have the ability to use Mana Saber's ramp yet again. But this does feel like the momentum is starting to fully favor Empanizado.
Yeah, one thing we also didn't point out is the double slam in Empanizado's warrior deck.
Right. It's interesting. You know, slam, again, another way to activate damage onto things.
Yep.
While keeping up the cycle. It does feel a little bit inefficient relative to what you want to be doing, because you want to be spending your mana to develop stuff onto the board. So, you know, Inner Rage, for example, or even Cool Taskmaster seems a little bit better at those activations, but Slam helps you get through taunts and whatnot, because you can just, like, slam to draw.
He's cut the combo completely. No Bloodsworn Mercenaries, no Rampage, no Inner Rage, no Cork on Elite. So it's just, like, all in on bombs and drawing cards.
Also, so interesting that Empanizado has waited this long to develop the Dread Corsair and attack. But, I mean, understandably, he didn't want to attack if he wasn't going to play the Dread Corsair. And now he drew the Horde Pillager, which helps him get the other weapon. Fr0zen in a tough spot here. Some very unfortunate outcomes on the revive did not allow him, the Shadowy Figure, to get that taunt back.
He's got to go for Galakrond.
Oh my goodness, Sniperino. Fr0zen able to kill that brute and save 6 life. That is big. Is that enough, though? Empanizado shuffled 1 bomb into the deck, as far as I know.
Yep, just 1. Still hasn't picked up either of those Wrench Calibers.
I mean, 1 bomb still is the classic Dr. Boom, or rather the GVG, the Goblins versus Gnome Dr. Boom, where it's a 7-mana 7/7 that summons 2 Boombots. It's still entirely reasonable.
Yep.
Alternatively, he could just play Horde Pillager and the South Sea Captain. Start drawing more cards and just thin his deck even more, so that way every card he's drawing is higher impact. I don't think he wants to waste natural draws on some of the other pirates in his deck right now. Blade Storm!
Oh, yeah.
3 mana Whirlwind.
He just wants that minion off the board.
Well, yeah, because he knows that Fr0zen's coming up on a potential Mass Resurrect turn.
Yeah, and he wants to not deny him that opportunity. I like that play a lot.
Yeah, that's a good use of it. Oh, boy.
Well, that's the only bomb.
Yeah, and I think Empanizado does not mind. Well,
but it actually there's 9 damage staring at him on board right now.
Yeah, this is scary.
And he has no way to heal. We can see there's actually 10 damage.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think Fr0zen's dead.
What is even happening? Fr0zen does not have any defense. Where are all his taunts?
Yeah.
They're not in the deck.
Yeah, that's 10 damage. South Sea Captain coming in hot.
Wow. And after quite the tumultuous start to this series, Empanizado just crushes Fr0zen in games 3 and 4 and is going to book a finals appearance versus Bloodyface. The newly minted Grandmaster Empanizado, showing hunger for years to try to get to the championship stage, who crowdfunded his way to his first Masters Tour through the local Mexican community, and ever since has been able to pay it off himself from that, has really made quite the first appearance here at the Hearthstone Grandmaster stage on broadcast. Well done.
Yep. I think he had a lot of clean plays overall, kind of giving himself maximum chances to win. Loved the Blade Storm there. The spot to kill the Mana Saber, knowing that coming up on 9 mana, that was the big turn that Fr0zen was waiting for. Because if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't make that Blade Storm play, if he just plays Dr. Boom onto the board, or Blastmaster Boom onto the board, Master Resurrection comes out, potentially gets back the taunts, the Convincing Infiltrator, maybe make things a little bit tougher. So very nicely done. And Fr0zen, the Priest ends up being the weak spot. Not what I expected too much, because it seemed like it had a lot of good matchups, but he was getting all of his disruption tools and none of his defensive tools. His Psychopomp got back his the Escape Mana Saber. He was getting Escape Mana Saber and Albatross instead of the Cartoon Defender Convincing Infiltrators at times when he really needed them. But, that's just what he chose for deck building. He chose to make it stronger against other things and have those pesky minions as opposed to just straight up defense. But he lost all 3 games in this series with the Priest.
Yep. So with the Priest falling, the stage has been set. It is players with some of the more unusual lineups featured in this tournament, making it all the way. You love to see it in terms of the risks paying off. We'll tell you all about it, but in the meantime, we're going to give an opportunity for Empanizado to get some rest. So take a look at this bracket as we get ready for our final break of the day, our final break of the week, TJ, because after that, we're going to be going full steam ahead to try and get ready for the last games of the week heading into week number 2. But Bloody Face versus Empanizado is going to be quite the fun one. So don't go anywhere. When we come back, the finale of week 1 here at the Hearthstone Grandmaster stage will commence.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile, helping you stay connected to what matters most. Learn about T-Mobile's COVID-19 response on T-Mobile.com.